Miss Brady. I'm the library director at WeGo, and for the next few minutes you are going to be watching a preview of the 2019 summer reading books. Each section of English has different requirements, so just sit back and enjoy the show as you learn about your 2019 summer reading books.
And I know just what you want. Poetic justice, put it in a song, alright.
The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is a story about Xiomara Batista, and she feels unheard and unable to hide in her Harlem neighborhood. Ever since her body grew into curves, she has learned to let her fists and fierceness do the talking. But Xiomara has plenty to say, and she pours all of her frustration and passion onto the pages of a leather notebook, reciting the words to herself like prayers, especially after she catches feelings for a boy in her bio class, who her family can never know about. This is a coming-of-age story which has won several awards this year. It's a very short read, and it is written in poetry form. Up next, you'll see a little bit of the author, Elizabeth Acevedo, performing part of her book.
The Poet X has a long story. I technically began writing it in 2012 when I was an 8th grade English teacher in Maryland.
Remember, these are black and brown girls in America.
And I had students who would ask me, you know, we never see any stories with us in them. My students were 90% Latino. And I realized that all these stories I had been telling in class and these poems I had been writing didn't necessarily end up on their bookshelves.
There is hurt here, inherited or otherwise, and trauma is a tapeworm growing in the gut until it gets so big you have to reach into your throat and pull it out from between your smile. Remember, teaching is not community service.
And so I began writing the Poet X almost as a response to what my students were asking for, but I didn't really finish it until 2016. And I wrote a couple of other manuscripts between that and realized that the story I most needed to tell was about finding your own voice.
And I know just what you want. Poetic justice, put it in a song, alright. Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Yeah. Freedom, freedom, where are you? Mean strike. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride.
The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain is a classic book, and it's a story about a boy named Tom and his friend Huckleberry Finn. And they are two boys that get into a lot of trouble, but they also have a lot of adventure, and there's a little bit of a love story in this book.
Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride.
Animals trap, trap, trap till the cages fall. The cages fall, the day is new, and everyone is waiting, waiting on you, and you've got time.
There are 11 million undocumented people in this country, and there's tens of thousands citizen children who were left behind. I am one of those. I'm Diane Guerrero. Some of you may know me as Maritza from Orange is the New Black, or Lena from Jane the Virgin. I recently wrote a book titled In the Country We Love, My Family Divided, and it talks about my experience as a citizen child of undocumented parents living in this country. Many families live with the fear of being separated and being deported if you are undocumented. When I was 14 years old, I came home and my family was gone, and this was because my family was detained and eventually to be deported. My family is from Colombia, and they're from a small city called Palmira. My mother was studying to be a teacher and worked for a bus company called Palmira Express. And my father was working in the sugarcane plant. I mean, pay was very little, and also there was a lot of violence going on in the country right now. At the time, it was a time of unrest. They saw the United States as a land of opportunity, as many immigrants do. When they got here, they were taking jobs, as a dishwasher, a factory worker. My mother would take, babysitting jobs or cleaning offices or houses. I know that sounds stereotypical, but normally, if you don't have the proper documentation, those are the type of jobs that you're going to get. But I don't think I ever saw my parents complain once. I remember my father taking English classes and trying to learn the language, and would take me as a kid to all his classes and or any little award shows that they had when you passed a level or something like that. My mother took computer classes. What I saw is that they were always in search for documentation, always trying to legalize their status. And unfortunately, and if you read in my book, you'll see that they came across a lot of roadblocks. There's so much trauma and divisiveness that goes through a process like deportation. It's literally ripping a family apart. I think that sometimes we often forget that this is not just a political issue, this is a human issue. This involves families, this involves real lives. There are millions of children and parents living in fear every day. It's sort of something that I experienced growing up. And my book, I think, will offer maybe some of those people maybe not to feel so alone as I once did. I wrote my book, I'm sharing my story, and I hope you like it.
The animals, trap, trap, trap till the cages full.
Boom, 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 boom. Tell me what you gonna do, but it ain't nowhere to run.
Hello. I am also, like everyone else, thrilled to be here. I am so glad that you are here, even after a break. My novel, Bone Gap, is something I like to consider a rural fairy tale. I'm going to read from an early part of the novel, and I'm just going to dive right in. This chapter is called Run. I'll be back. Rosa stood at the large picture window in the quiet suburban house and mouthed the words over and over as if giving them form could make them true. But that was foolish. Also foolish, waiting at the window, hoping to see the yard teeming with police officers, staring at the ceiling, listening for the sound of helicopters and the pounding of combat boots on the roof. No one had come. No one was coming, except for him. He would come, as he came every day, to ask the same question. Are you in love with me yet? At first, she'd answered his questions with questions. Who are you? Who are you really? What do you want? What is this place? What's wrong with you? But he would smile, that bland, pleasant smile, the smile of an uncle, a teacher, a clerk, all those men with all those teeth. You'll love me soon. You'll see. This was not the first place he'd brought her. The first place was a cavernous room so cold and empty and dark that she could not find the boundaries of it. It was the size of a cornfield. It was the size of a country, and all she could do was wander screaming through the blackness. Then one morning, she woke up and found herself in a giant bed in a sunny room with a plush blue armchair and a cherry armoire. He was sitting in one of the armchairs, looking pleased with himself. I was wondering how long you'd sleep. Come, let me show you the house. She must have been drugged, because she couldn't imagine how she'd gotten there, because she did let him show her the house. It was a large frame house with miles of slippery wood floors, a kitchen clad in stainless steel so shiny it burned, a living room with a fireplace and a giant TV. A picture window faced the street, where other houses, identical except for their color, sat in a line like chastised children. Do you like it? He asked. I built it for you. Built it for her. Full-grown trees hunkered alongside the house, birds perching in the limbs as if posed. How long did it take to build a house? There are clothes in the closet upstairs, and the TV has every show, every movie. Watch anything you want. Again, the pleasant smile. The kitchen is stocked. You're looking a little thin. You should eat something. A long time ago, back in Poland, a horse had kicked a boy in the head, rendering him senseless and strange. This man had the same expression, cheerful, empty. He gestured to a painting hanging over the fireplace. It took her a moment to understand it was a portrait of her. She was standing in the middle of a verdant field, one blossom threaded through her fingers, another in her long, coiling hair. A ring of girls danced around her. In the picture, an invisible wind pulled at her white gown, outlining her body so vividly she didn't seem to be wearing any clothes at all. Rosa edged away from the fireplace, from the horrible painting over it, like an animal sidesteps a snake. He didn't notice, or if he did, he didn't care. He peered down at her from his great height, icy eyes on fire. She fought for breath, as if that stare was incinerating all the oxygen in the room, as if she would be consumed along with it. He said, "You're very beautiful." Rosa had heard this before, but had never scared her so much. "I want to marry you." When she finally spoke, she didn't say, "No one is so beautiful." She didn't say, "You're a kidnapper and a criminal and a madman." She didn't say, "I'm in love with someone else." She didn't say, "Please don't hurt me." What fell from her numb lips was what she'd said to a foolish boy she'd left in Poland. "I am too young to get married." "Oh," he said, head tilted, considering this new bit of information. "Well, I guess we'll have to wait until you're not too young." Thank you.
I have a dream. I have a dream. I have a dream. One day.
When Congressman John Lewis and Andrew Aden and the artist Nate Powell did a book a year and a half ago about John Lewis's history in the civil rights movement, that book went on the New York Times bestseller list for 47 straight weeks. He became the head of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. He became one of the architects of the 1963 March on Washington. And at age 23, he was the man who spoke just before Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech. He was 23 years old. He was the youngest speaker that day, and he was the one who had been beaten and arrested more frequently and more recently than anybody else who spoke that day. He was the man whose speech worried everyone the most that day. And he writes now in the new book about the frantic, up-to-the-last-second appeals to John Lewis to please, for that speech at the March on Washington, please tone it down. And he did tone it down a little.
John Lewis.
I speak tonight for the dignity of man and the destiny of democracy. At times, history and fate meet at a single time, in a single place, to shape a turning point in man's unending search for freedom. So it was at Lexington and Concord. So it was a century ago at Appomattox. So it was last week in Selma, Alabama.
I have a dream. I have a dream. I have a dream.
The 57 Bus by Dashka Slater. One teenager in a skirt, one teenager with a lighter. One moment that changes both of their lives forever. If it weren't for the 57 bus, Sasha and Richard would have never met. Both were high school students from Oakland, California, one of the most diverse cities in the country. But they lived in different worlds. Sasha, a white teen, lived in the middle-class foothills and attended a small private school. Richard, a black teen, lived in a crime-plagued flatlands and attended a large public school. Each day their paths overlapped for a mere 8 minutes. But one afternoon, on the ride home from school, a single reckless act left Sasha severely burned and Richard charged with 2 hate crimes, facing life imprisonment. Next up, you are going to see a news clip of the actual events.
Tonight about a young man who was severely burned on a bus in Oakland and the 16-year-old who is accused of setting him on fire. KTVU's Eric Rasmussen is live now in San Francisco, where the victim is being treated for his burns. Eric.
Julie, this 18-year-old who goes by Sasha Fleischman is in the burn unit here at St. Francis Memorial Hospital. I briefly spoke with his parents tonight, who said they were simply too upset to go on camera. Some of Fleischman's other family and friends are expressing relief tonight that police have a suspect in custody. Police say this 16-year-old in a hood and handcuffs did the unthinkable, setting a sleeping passenger on fire on the AC Transit Line 57 bus in Oakland.
Pulled up right behind him.
This woman told us her bus arrived on the scene at MacArthur and Ardley Avenue last night, moments after the bus carrying the victim and suspect pulled over.
We saw the guy who was laying out there burned.
Was he in bad shape?
Yeah, he was in bad shape. His legs was all burnt up, red and black.
Today, friends of 18-year-old Sasha Fleischman set up a website to raise money to help pay for his medical treatment.
This book is called Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evison. This is a story about a man named Mike Munoz, and he's a young man living in Washington State. His life has been a whole lot of waiting for something to happen, with nothing happening. Not too many years out of high school and still doing menial work, and just fired from his latest gig as a lawn boy on a landscaping crew, he knows that he's got to be the one to shake things up if he's ever going to change his life. Question is, how? You will have to read it to find out about Mike Munoz's journey. So, there you have it. There are your 2019 E3 summer reading books, and you are just to choose one of those books, one out of the 7 that I just presented, and read it before next fall. Up next is a short tutorial on Overdrive, our ebook service for our WeGo library. Alright, I'm going to show you how to get your books off of our West Chicago High School Library's Overdrive. So you need to go to d94.org. And then you need to go to For Students, and you find the WeGo LRC, or you can just type in wegolrc.org and go to eBooks and audiobooks. In order to log in, you need to type in your school email and then put your password in and go ahead and sign in. Once you are in here, all you have to do is you can look at any of the books. If you want to go to the collections, say your summer reading, 10th grade, you can click on that. And you're going to get all of the books that are in. Right now, it seems like quite a few people have them checked out. But you can still check these 3 out. So let's say I want to check this one out. I just click on Borrow and then go to Checkouts, and then you can see what you had checked out, and all you have to do is read in your browser. So click on here and I can just start reading the book. This will automatically return for you, so you don't have to worry about it in 2 weeks. I'm just going to go ahead and return it myself. You can do that as well. You can download it, it says up here, but It's just a lot easier to read it in your browser. So let's go back to that 10th grade reading. If you see a book on here that's grayed out here and you want to put a hold on it, so you'd be the next person in line to get it, you would just place a hold. So before you can join a hold list, you must enter your date of birth. So whenever, just put whatever. Submit. And then it's going to ask for your email address. You would just type in your student email address a couple times, and then it's automatically going to check it out for you when it's due. So that's how you get your summer reading book or any book off of Overdrive. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you have a great summer and do lots of reading.